Hello, guys. Welcome to Hotspot Economics, Hotspot, and it's your girl Connie. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe. Hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to get your notifications. So I saw this video in YouTube, and I thought it would be a great way to rebuttal some of the emails I've gotten about saying, telling women of color that buying power is not real wealth. So if you look in the news and the media, you're going to hear a lot about black buying power. Right now, buying power for African American and a whole in America is about 1.2 trillion, and it's projected to be by 2022 1.4 or 1.5. That's a lot of money. But what exactly is buying power? There's a lot of controversy that buying power isn't real money, buying power isn't real wealth, and buying power is giving a false sense of hope. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. If I go to Macy's and I buy a Louis Vuitton bag and I take it home, that bag is real. It's not fake. The debt attached to it is very real. Whoever sells that Louis Vuitton bag, they're getting immediate profits. They're getting, regardless if it's credit card or cash, once it's paid, it's paid. That bag has now been sold. Now it's up to me to pay back that Louis Vuitton bag no matter what. So if I'm using cash, that's it, it's gone. But if I'm using credit, that's that's real. That's debt. So a lot of people look at buying power and say, "Oh my gosh, it's so silly for you to go around and tell people, well, buying power is real power if you buy properly." So instead of going to Louis Vuitton and buying a bag for $2,000, imagine you go into a warehouse and you buy 2,000 combs. And these combs are, only native to United States. I'm not speaking off the top of my head here, help me out. And you take these combs and you sell them to India. And each comb that you bought is about $5, but you're selling it to India and it's a big, big, big trend. And you're able to sell each comb for about $15, $20. You just used your buying power, but you invested that buying power to actually bring you an income. So that is what I'm trying to encourage people of color to do. If you get a line of credit, instead of running to Macy's and instead of running to Sears or JC Penney's or Target or wherever it may be, try to invest the buying power you have into a company or into your own business, or try to think of a way to invest that buying power to give yourself a return. I have no idea why this is happening. I've been seeing it over the web, and people are talking about buying power is not real power. I have no idea, because 70% of America's GDP comes from us buying. The working class, the middle class, the upper middle class, even the working poor, 70% of America's gross domestic product comes from us who work and pay taxes and make purchases in the market. But if you actually leverage a certain percentage of those purchases towards investments, buying franchises, opening a business, opening a brokerage, opening a barbershop, opening a nail salon, opening a dry cleaners, if you borrow money to invest towards a business, that is an economical great way to make more money. So I never quite understood why there's pushback in the Black community about investing your buying power, about utilizing your buying power for investments and finance and making more money. So if I go to Louis Vuitton and I make a $5,000 bag purchase, that's not really going to turn an investment. I'm not even sure you can sell those things back credibly. And if I could be wrong, but it's not a viable investment. Now, if I take my credit line of $10,000, I go to a real estate school, purchase a real estate Groupon for $200 to take real estate courses, pass the course, use my credit card again to pay for the state test, which is $20, then use the rest of that, like about $300 to promote myself, make a website, and, start selling homes. I have a serious return on my investment. All right. So let's just say you want to get into Bitcoin and you don't have the money, but you take out a loan, or you use your credit card, or wherever it may be. I'm just speaking figuratively here, and you make an investment. That's an investment. That's you utilizing your buying power with the sense of getting a return. Right now, African Americans, we are big consumers, but nobody's consuming from us. So, what you want to do is learn about investments, learn about finance, and if you do get a line of credit, try as much as you can conservatively to invest that to make a return. It's not that hard. The Amazon story I told you about is very common. People are importing things from other parts of the world and actually selling it on Amazon. So if you don't have money in hard cold capital cash, and you want to sell wedding dresses, and you have a credit line of $10,000, and you take 4,500 and you import wedding gowns from China and you sell them on Amazon. Okay, so you spend 45,000 on, let's say, 30 dresses, and then you sell each dress for 2,500. You're going to make a hefty return. So that's what I mean, leveraging your buying power and using that buying power as real economic force. No one's born rich. I want to tell you something. No one is born rich. Everybody that acquires wealth at some point in time utilize buying power they really didn't have, whether it's a loan, whether it's a credit card, whether it's borrowing from a family or friend. Everybody at some point had to invest somewhere to get somewhere else. So I don't really want to hear about um buying power is not real power. Makes absolutely no sense. How you choose to use your buying power will dominate your finance future. So if I have, for instance, if I go right now with my credit card to Mercedes Benz, I'm very tempted, and actually say, you know what, I have a credit score of 810. I want that Benz right there, that coupe, that red one, son. Give it to me. Is that a good investment? Absolutely not. Cars are the worst investment. The moment I drive that car out of the lot, the value drops dramatically. So unless you're buying an antique or collector's item and you don't plan to actually use it, a car is not a good investment. Let's go someplace else now. Let's just say I'm looking for a house, and I go into an area and I see a rundown house. And I'm like, how much is this house? And I call up the landowner and they say, yeah, it's pretty beat up. I'm selling it for 85,000. And ding ding ding. In my head I'm like, 85,000? I can buy this house, fix it back up, make it look nice and pretty, and sell it back for 350,000 with my investment being only 85,000. Is that me using my buying power? Of course. Ding, 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 ding. So even if I had to borrow or use credit card to access that buying power, at some point, if you use it the right way, you could invest and get a return on that. So yes, you still got to pay back that credit card. You still got to pay back that loan or whatever it is you borrowed from a friend or family. But the whole point, you did it with the intent to get a return on an investment. So that's the way I want us to use buying power. So you see this video in front of your face right here, and it says, how the rich spend their money. So it's a great video. I'm going to put the link in it in the description box so you guys can watch it, because I want to give the owner, credit. But I just want to talk over it so you guys can understand. I posted it before and it really didn't get that much attention because I think, it's kind of complicated. So I want to walk you guys through it. And if it's not complicated, I just want to, add my commentary, because this is probably the best, best, best explanation of how the rich spend their money I've ever seen. And I have no life, and this is what I do. I watch videos, I watch documentaries, I watch TED Talks, I watch all these finance, shows, and I said, wow, in 4 minutes, in just 4 minutes, this guy did an amazing job explaining how the rich spend their money, versus us. So let's go together. Let's get our popcorn.
Have you ever wondered why the rich people keep getting richer? The middle class stay the same and the poor gets even broker? You've probably heard the terms cash flow, expenses, assets, and liabilities. All these four terms plays a huge role in how the rich people spend their money.
So I'm going to pause it right there, okay, guys? So get a pen and paper. If you're new to these terms, get a pen and paper. These are the core of wealth, these terms: cash flow, expenses, assets, and liabilities. So if you're watching this video for the first time, go get a pen or get your iPhone, your Android, open it up, take notes. A lot of people say, what's the building blocks of wealth? Right here, son. Right here. Right here, son. Cash flow, expenses, assets, and liabilities. This is the secret smorgasbord of how to become wealthy or ignore it and how to stay poor and broke. Let's continue.
Before we take a look at how the rich people spend their money, let's get a clear understanding of all these four terms. Cash flow is money you make. Expenses is money you spend. An asset is something that pays you money. And a liability is something that costs you money.
So I'm going to pause it right there. This is extremely important. You have a lot of people running around, especially African Americans, running around saying, I got an investment. No, no, no. An investment is going to make you money. Expenses is money you spend. Assets, it's something that pays you, making you money. Okay? And liabilities is something that's going to cost you. So screenshot this, pause it. This is the core of wealth. It's the core of wealth, or it can be the reason why people never get out of poverty. We're going to continue.
If you have a job and make money from it, you have a cash flow from that job. An expense could be anything you buy, like a bar of chocolate, as simple as that. Now, a house could both be a liability or an asset.
And I want to pause it right there. A house can be both a liability and an asset. The biggest mistake most Americans make is buying a home and thinking, okay, I bought a home, I have an asset. You absolutely do not have an asset unless that home is making money for you. Until you pay off that home or you flip it, it's a liability because you have to keep putting money into it while it's not actually putting money right back into your pocket. That's why real estate is one of the quickest ways to build assets and get a cash flow, because you can buy a home, fix it, and flip it. Or you can buy a home and have tenants in it. And while you're paying off that debt, your tenants are paying you rent. But if you're living in your house and that's your shelter and you need it, and you have a substantial mortgage to pay and you owe a lot, it's actually a really dangerous liability. We saw what happened in 2008 with the housing market, and a lot of people still don't understand that it's totally how you're going to use your home, which makes it an asset or liability.
If you buy a house for yourself, the house is a liability because you have to pay money each month that is considered house costs. Things like water, electricity, debt, etc. Now, if you were to buy the house and rent it out,
Yep.
the house would be an asset to you when all the money you spend on the house is paid back. Another example of an asset is your job, or stocks, if you do it right. The way the rich people spend their money is completely different to how the rest of the majority in today's society spend their money. The majority, being the middle class and the poor, will spend their money without thinking twice. The poor people will spend their money on things called stuff. This can be anything with little to medium value. Things they don't actually need to survive, normally bought just for fun. Video games is a good example on stuff, but also things bought at the flea market or the garage sale. Ever had that friend that's house always was filled with stuff? Toys, games, and other stuff.
So this is a great example. I'm going to freeze it right here. This is my rebuttal to people in any community, in any type of economic or social environment that's telling anyone, I don't care what the race is, that buying power is not real money. As you can see, whether it's a credit card or whether it's a loan or whatever it may be, he's acquiring crap. Now, let's just say he was to acquire a stock or a bond or actually save that money until he can invest appropriately. That is utilizing your buying power. So, right here, this guy looking scruffy, is he utilizing his buying power properly? Hell no. You see right here, he has a teepee and he's a, what is, why is there a teepee? He has a computer. He has a, what's that, a paint frame, a guitar, a Rubik's Cube, a kite, and we see like a bootleg looking PlayStation. So that's what I'm trying to tell people. Buying power is power. It's how you choose to use that power. So let's continue with the video.
I know I did, and he is a prime example of the poor class. Note that when I refer to the poor, I mean the people with the lowest net worth in today's society, not necessarily homeless people. The middle class, on the other hand, is the people that appear rich but aren't. The middle class spend their money on things called liabilities. As you remember, this is something that costs you money to own. They buy cars, boats, cabins, or houses.
So I just want to stop right there. This is a poor use of buying power. This is why it's so important to watch this channel and learn. I know we have fun sometimes to talk about frivolous stuff, but this is actually why I made Hasesput. So you guys can learn about finance, investments and stocks and liabilities and assets because I'm learning with you. I've always said that we don't utilize our buying properly. So you're buying these things, a boat. It's a liability. It'll never make a return. A car, one of the biggest and the most favorite liability of the middle class. I never get over how people are spending an enormous amount of money on cars and car maintenance and car care, and it has absolutely no return. Most people don't realize they could have owned a business for the money they put into their car. They could own their own real estate brokerage, their own barbershop, their own hair salon, their own consulting business for the money and time it you put into that car. And also a house. A lot of people think once they own a house, that's an investment. Absolutely not. Unless you pay it off or it's giving you money in the meanwhile or you're flipping it, it's a huge liability, especially if you contrast to your salary. Anything that takes 20 to 30 years to pay off, dude, that is not an investment. That's a high risk. That's saying you're never going to lose your job. You're never going to get laid off. You're never going to have a break in your income in 30 years. Good luck with that. Because that's the typical home loan that most Americans take. We're going to continue.
Things that will cost more than just the first purchase itself. The more money they earn, the more money they spend.
Pause it one more time. The more money they earn, the more money they spend. That is the middle class. They're basically bleeding money. What's going to continue now?
The way the rich people spend their money is what makes them even richer. The rich people spend their money on something called assets. Rich people invest their money in something that will pay them back more. Successful people often refer to it as something called ROI, which stands for return of investment.
Return on
If a
investment.
rich person is going to spend his money on something, he looks if what he purchases has a return of investment. If not, he's likely not to buy it. So instead of spending their money on video games, too expensive cars, or new house interior, they'll spend it on stocks, ads, or invest it in their own online business, for example.
So I want to stop it right there. Return on investment, ROI. Please write that down, memorize it, screenshot it. That is what is the key to wealth. A lot of people make purchases and don't think about return on investment. So whenever you're making a purchase, look what the majority of your purchases are. Can they produce prospectively some type of a possible return? And most poor and middle class and working class will tell you Absolutely not. Some people not even make in their entire life a return on investment purchase. So it's really important that, we see this. I'm going to continue.
Something that will pay them back in the long or short term. Can you now see why you're still not rich and why most people never will be? Money is a game, and the game is simple. Change the way you spend your money, and you will win.
And, that's about it right there. I'm going to, stop it. And, thank you for watching. But I'm not done. I'm not done. So, when people talk about buying power, the majority of buying power is not done with cash. The majority of buying power is done with loans and credits. It's truly, guys, up to how you spend that money. So I do want to go into this graph here. I hope I'm not going over too much time. So this graph was in my But Facebook page, which you can find in the link in About Me section. So really quickly, you're gonna see right here. So this is I got this from a book for the wealthy. I took a screenshot of it and I uploaded it to Google. So you can see step 3 is gift to family and charity. Step 2 is wealth building, which is estate liquidity, children's future, and business continuity. And then we have cash flow, which is step 1, health and life insurance, education, funding, and retirement planning. But I'm going to tell you a little secret, all right, that I was taught in one of these wealth seminars that I got snuck into that I had no business in being. They actually, this is the graph and this is what they want in terms of how it should look. But they actually start backwards, meaning that they think about gifts to family and charities first, meaning that a lot of these really rich or people that want to be rich do things as a collective family. So they go into a family business where they all pitch in and they go into things that they can pass down generationally. They go into things that they can give to and leave a legacy. So even though you see this at the top up here, the way they enter any business partnerships or anything, even education, they think about, hey, can this end up being something that's generational or a social legacy. You see, social legacy. So this is why they're so dominant, people that are wealthy who think this way, because the first thing you're thinking about is if I engage myself, my husband, my son, my daughter into this business, into this career, or into this investment, whatever it may be, can we pass it down? Can we create a social legacy? So you might see it at the top, but that's the way it happens in life. But the way it starts, they actually think about legacy first. They think about wealth building second, and they think about protection last. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you think about social legacy, you definitely have to have wealth building. If you think about wealth building, you have to have protection. So this is what I'm trying to tell people. People of color, the words legacy and the words generational wealth and wealth building, it's almost obsolete. And that's why I made this channel. I want to change the way people look and earn their money. This is not going to be, oh, go to college and get a job, because we've been doing that. We've been doing that forever. We've been doing that back since Hidden Figures and NASA and going to the moon. And you have not seen an astronomical push of African Americans into wealth and finance investments in Wall Street. African Americans are like completely locked out of Wall Street. And that's why I sound sometimes like a conservative because we need to get into Wall Street. We need to get into investments. That's the key to everything that plagues us. We can protest and we can walk down the street with 10,000 signs, but if you're not an economic force to be reckoned with, nobody wants to listen. If you can't lobby politicians, if you can't invest financially in politicians, if you can't back people's campaigns, you're going to get less for your vote. So that's why it's really important to understand social legacy. What does that mean? It means when you're not here, can your son or daughter actually be successful just by your reputation? Can your son or daughter get a job in the company where you worked your entire life? Can your son or daughter actually have a better standard of living than you did? A lot of people that are working class and working class and even poverty class, they've been brainwashed to think, oh, if I worked hard, you know Shonda have to work hard too, and I've worked hard, yeah, Lily have to work hard too. That is not the ideal of the super rich, because you're supposed to alleviate, enforce, and enrich every single generation. What happens with African Americans in the step one is that they keep starting over. Most African Americans don't make it past, I want to say, um you know, they barely make it past education funding. They don't. African Americans rely on public retirement systems set up by unions for 1Ks or whatever you want to call it, or things that are done in a private or public sector, not done by them. When you're talking about estate liquidity, they don't even know what that is. Children's futures, they don't even know what that is. Business continuity, they don't know what that is, and gifts to family and charity. And people don't understand the importance of social legacy. You always see rich people giving away a lot of money because that's connections. That's networking. That is solidifying your reputation amongst the stars. That is truly reaching out and forming something that can never be undone. If I give $1 million to St. Jude, my name will carry weight and that name will take us places. But how do we get there? We get there by thinking about that in the long run. So you can't work someplace for 10, 20 years, then think about social legacy and think about wealth building. You truly have to think about it before you do anything. I spoke to a very wealthy person of the Jewish faith, and they told me the secret was F F F. I'm like, what the hell? I never heard that before. They told me it is faith, family, and friends. Faith means having some type of moral code, which is imperative to marriage, social class, having children, raising children. Because how can you pass down generational wealth if you have no generation to pass it down to? So having a strict social culture, of standards of wealth, marriage, passing down, son, daughters, kids, and raising them with that culture and tradition. Then you have faith, then you have family. Of course, you engage in businesses that you can keep and pass down in the family, whether it's stocks, bonds, investments. They try not to engage in industries where they have no control over their future. And that's where you see entrepreneurship is 27% of all millionaires in the United States. That's a whopping number. It's actually the biggest demographic in concerns to being a millionaire. Then you're talking about friends. So friends means networking. Not like, hey girl. Not those types of friends. Friends that can get you a job. Friends that will back you up. Friends that will support you. A true business/social network. That is what they mean by friends. And like I said, you could always tell somebody's future by looking at the 10 friends in their circle. If nobody in your circle is at the pinnacle of success, if nobody in your circle is an entrepreneur, if nobody in your circle is wealthy, you can probably much predict that's where you're going to end up, because your social circle is indicative of your future. So if you're like, oh my gosh, doesn't mean you dump all your friends. That's not what I'm saying. It means you insert yourself into social circles, into networking with people who are doing what you want and people who are where you want to be. If you're living in a big metro city, this is not hard. They're constantly having, networking seminars. There's even communities for investments and networkings of all kinds and genres. So there's no excuse for that. So it's FFF, okay? Family, faith, friends, or you could say friends, family, faith. It doesn't matter, but FFF, meaning that it's all a community. If you notice, everything is about working and assorting a community. So community matters. And that's why African Americans tend to have so much challenge, because their community is broken. And like I said, marriage is a massive building block of economics. You cannot build gift to family and charities. You cannot build children's future and business continuity. You cannot build education funding, retirement planning with broken homes. And that's why I'm an advocate for marriage by any means necessary. I'm talking about Malcolm X marriages here, by any means necessary. Because if you're going to college and you're getting your PhD and your master's, or even if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, there's a very big probability that life will step in. Remember life? Life? Life will step in and something will happen to you. You can get pregnant. You can have, God forbid, an accident. You can have some type of liability that makes your business cash flow stop. Life happens. And that's why you need a community. And that's why you need the unity. And that's why having that social structure is paramount. And it's something that African Americans aren't spoken about. When's the last time, if you're still here with me, when's the last time you heard a black person say the word legacy? Or the black person say social legacy, like what's on the screen? When's the last time you heard a black person say, I'm talking about my estate legacy, or my children's future, or business continuity? When's the last time you heard business continuity out of a black person's mouth? Or when's the last time you heard about, I got to check my health insurance? And guys, these is the building blocks. This is how it looks when the action plan is executed. But in essence, when these people go into these types of things, they think about, how can this business or venture create a social legacy? How can this business or venture, help me with wealth building? And how can this business or venture, protect my cash flow, guarantee my cash flow, you know, give me health and life insurance, protect my children's education and funding, and ensure my retirement planning? They think about this ahead of time. And the trick is, if you do that initially, you're going to definitely be more successful. If you say to myself, I'm not going to engage in anything that doesn't increase life-term wealth, you're going to have a least chance of going into shaky stuff or going into areas where you're not going to be wealthy. Because in order for you to pass down something, think about it. In order for you to pass down something, it has to be in abundance. You can't pass down a dollar. You can only pass down an abundance of money or abundance of wealth. So if you use that thinking, you will be wealthy. And it's so funny because it's like I don't want to get spiritual, it's like a blessing thing here that you're thinking of others. And in that essence, you're actually putting yourself first because you're thinking of others, because you're saying, hey, when I'm not here, or hey, the legacy of my children, or hey, 10 years from now, 40 years from now, how does my life impact my family when I'm not here? And by doing that selfless thinking, it's actually empowering, because anything that you build to last is going to have a dramatic effect in your life in the present. Let me say it again. Anything that you build to last is going to have a very dramatic effect in the presence. So this is it. This is how you do it. Social legacy, gift to family and charity, wealth building, estate liquidity, children's future, business continuity, step one, protection, cash flow, health, life, and insurance, education and funding. And notice I'm reading the graph backwards, because when I went to these wealth seminars, that's the first thing they talk about. How can we get to the next generations? How can we get? And some people will say, well, start in the beginning. No, no, no. If you start 5 generations down, you're basically forcing yourself to be extremely successful, because only extreme success can get you 10 blocks down, 20 blocks down, not mediocre crap. So I want you guys to enjoy this video, share this video. I think it's very good. It's easy to learn from. Show it to your kids. I don't think I dropped any F-bombs, so I think I'm all right. And like and subscribe. Look in the description box for the link to the actual video that was featured here. I just want to make sure I give him his credit. And also, if you like what I'm saying, meet me on my Facebook page, Hot Spot. And I also have a Patreon that I'm setting up as we speak. All right, guys.